I think Budget 2024 had two big issues hanging over it. One was the corporation tax receipts, and the second was the fallout from the war in Ukraine and the impact that it's having on the cost of living. And I welcome the announcement by the Government of the establishment of the Future Ireland Fund to set aside the additional corporation tax receipts to meet our future needs. But I'm really concerned that this fund will be invested in reducing costs in other countries rather than here in Ireland, where it could be used to drive down the cost of electricity by investing in offshore renewable electricity. And as you know, Minister, the Joint Oireachtas Committee on Social Protection has been looking at the whole area of pensions over the last 18 months. One of the reports that we produced was on auto-enrolment. And we highlighted in that report that just 1/5 of Irish pension funds are being invested in domestic shares and bonds. And our fear is that this Future Ireland Fund will be used to drive economic development in other countries and not used to drive economic development here. And I believe that the offshore renewable electricity sector is a case in point. The Irish Wind Energy Association back in 2020 said the development of just 3 gigawatts of offshore wind energy off the west coast of Ireland, approximately 4% of the actual potential that we have, will create 2,500 jobs during construction and a further 600 permanent jobs right along the west coast of Ireland, contributing €1.7 billion per annum to the Irish economy. Now, Minister, we have 220 million acres of a maritime resource off our coast, with the ability to generate 70,000 megawatts of offshore renewable electricity. And what we should be doing is using some of the Future Ireland Fund to implement an ambitious programme to actually clean up our electricity supply and our energy supply by developing a long-term sustainable employment programme for people right along the western seaboard of this country and make Ireland the biggest global renewable energy exporter. Not only would it meet our own long-term needs, but it would meet the long-term needs of France and Austria as well in terms of the amount of electricity we could produce. And the net result of this would be to significantly reduce the cost of electricity to Irish families. And we all know the impact of electricity costs on our economy at the moment in terms of food costs, in terms of the cost of living. Now, earlier on today, the Minister for Finance told us that inflation from 2022 to 2024 is running at 16.15%. Now, we also had an announcement today of a €12 increase in the basic social welfare rates. But, Minister, if we look at the incomes before the war in Ukraine and compare that to the incomes next year, even taking social welfare increases into account, pensioners will be €15 a week worse off, carers will be €12 a week worse off, disabled people will be €9.60 a week worse off. And these are the people that are meeting higher than average electricity costs and heating costs. And these people are being driven further into poverty by inflation, which is not being addressed by the increases in social welfare. Now, in the Minister's contribution in justifying the Future Ireland Fund, he made the point that age-related spending by the end of this decade will be €7 to €8 billion higher, and that's because of our population ageing. But one way to address this problem in the short term is to increase workforce participation rates. Employers want to see it. It is good for the economy, but it's also good for society. And the 50% reduction over 2 years in childcare fees is a positive development. But we must reward work and we must support those that are underemployed presently. Now, Minister, as you know, an issue that I've been consistently raising is the working family payment. And the reality is that the working family payment, when compared to inflation, the only families that will actually benefit are families with one child, and they'll benefit over the budgets from 2022, 2023 and 2024 to the princely sum of 1.22%. About €5 as a result of this. Now, if you take families with more than one child, they're actually worse off net over these 3 budgets. And I noted that Minister McGrath's family, his wife Sarah and his 7 children were here in the chamber today, and it was a great honour for them to be present here to see Minister McGrath deliver his first budget. But if he was on the working family payment, and his family were on the working family payment, there'd be 8.4% less buying power as a result of those 3 budgets than they had before that, because of the way inflation is eating into the cost of living at the moment. And the difficulty is, Minister, this sends out a clear message for working families that it doesn't pay to go to work. Now, that has a fundamental problem in terms of our economy at the moment, where we're at maximum employment, but there is an opportunity to untap and bring other people into the economy, making it much better in economic terms and in financial terms for those families to be working. But it also has long-term social implications by having those people in employment, and we're putting barriers in their way in making this happen. And I would ask you, Minister, to look again at some of the provisions in this budget that are creating barriers to employment, not encouraging people into the workforce. Thank you.